The holiday season is here, and this festive period we are focusing on self-care and caring for others. So for the next few weeks, all of my videos are taking part in the Thankmas charity campaign. And this year, Thankmas is partnering with the World Central Kitchen, which is a worldwide charity that delivers meals to people who are in areas of crisis and affected by crisis such as flooding, wars, or other natural disasters. So please read more about the charity and the campaign in the description box below, and that's where you also find the very important donation link so you can take part in this holiday season campaign. Thank you very much. In this first part of our self-care series, we're going to focus on slowing down and checking in how we're feeling as we're slowly moving towards Christmas, New Year, the holiday season. So let's slow down and let's see how we're feeling today. Let's get started. For this week's practice, I would suggest having some props nearby. I have 2 blocks, but you might have a pillow or a couple of cushions, just something that you can use for a backbend, supported backbend in the end. And we're going to start in child's pose. So find your way into child's pose, and throughout the practice, let yourself feel comfortable. We're going to do a slow practice. So make sure that you don't push yourself. You have time in each pose, maybe a bit longer than we would normally have. So make sure that you make these poses comfortable so that there is that space, so that there is that time to check in how you're feeling. And now if in this child's pose, it's better for you to open the legs wider apart. Feel free to have the knees wider apart. Feel free to also bring a block or a pillow under the pelvis or under the chest if those props would make your child's pose a bit more manageable. Let the neck, let the shoulders soften. And take a few slightly slower breaths in and out. With the exhalations, let the arms, let the hips, let the back, the head become just a bit heavier. And just start to notice where there might be tension in your body. And it might be that we can't just instantly release that tension. That is very fine. We are just starting the practice, checking in. And our first step is to notice where there might be tension. And then we'll later on see if we could release that tension. We'll take another few breaths here, maybe another 3 to 5 breaths in this child's pose. Notice your shoulders, your arms. Are you holding tension around the shoulders? Could you release around the neck just a bit more? And if not, that's very, very fine. Again, just noticing that tension now in the beginning. And then we'll see what we'll do with that tension as we go further into the practice. We are here to look after ourselves. So be kind to yourself throughout this practice. And now with the next couple of breaths, from your child's pose, slowly bring yourself onto hands and knees. And if you have any props that you need to move aside, you can move them next to the mat. And we're going to go into a few rounds of the cat and cow. So hands about shoulder width apart, knees about hip width apart. You might tuck the toes under if you want. Now with your next breath, round your spine and feel the tailbone tucking under. Let the head drop down, rounding through the pelvis, through the spine. And then with the next breath, Start to open the chest and just notice where along the spine you can find some back bending. Make sure it's not hurting. Same again. With the next breath, rounding the spine. And this time, see if you could feel the hands, the arms pressing down, opening between the shoulder blades. And then opening the chest again. Breathe. And notice the back bend along your spine. Maybe it goes all the way into the neck. And again, breathe and round the spine. Can you feel that opening along the back side of the spine? And it's fine if you can't feel it. Just finding a tension along the back of the spine. And then we go again into that back bend, opening through the chest. Could you release the shoulders just a tiny bit away from the ears? One more round, breathing into your cat pose, rounding the spine. Could you find some softness in the neck? And one more back bend, once more, opening the chest. Notice how the pelvis is moving into that back bend as well. And then bring your spine back to center, what feels like center to you now. And if you haven't already, tuck the toes under and then lift the pelvis up, coming into downward facing dog. And now in this downward dog, take a couple of steps from one side to the other with your feet. Could we let the pelvis move together with the legs? See if you could do a couple of steps from one hand to the other. How does that feel in your shoulders? Could we still release the neck? And then find maybe a bit of stillness in your downward dog and just let yourself feel the arms, the back, the hips, the legs. How are you feeling in this downward dog? Is there tension that you could release? Could we make this downward dog just a bit softer? Take another breath or two in and out. Maybe knees are a bit bent. Maybe heels are not touching the floor. That's very, very fine. And then slowly bring yourself back onto hands and knees. And lean back into child's pose, this time just for a few breaths. And you could bring arms down next to your sides, next to the legs, or even behind the back if that feels better. Breathe in and out. Just letting the hands, letting the shoulders rest a bit. And then with your next few breaths, slowly from child's pose, slide all the way down onto your belly. So now you could extend the legs behind you. Find your belly, find your chest onto the mat. And then reach or just lengthen the arms over the top of the mat. And see if you could release your head down, lean your head down onto the mat. Now find some gentle activation through the legs, like your legs are reaching away from the head. And see if you could find some stability around the pelvis, around the lower back. Maybe very gently drawing in through the lower belly. So not squeezing in, just finding a bit of support from the core. If it helps, you might imagine or visualize the lower belly gently drawing in, the sides gently drawing in towards the spine, so there is support. And maybe you're breathing more out to the ribs.
If that feels like it's enough just to stay here and focus on that sensation, that support deep down in the core, then you could stay here. Or we could do a bit of twisting cobras. So now you could step the right hand next to the right shoulder, and then with the next breath, just gently press down through the right hand, open the chest away from the mat. So there's a bit of a back bend and a bit of a twist going on. Breathe here, softening the shoulders. Maybe the twist goes down towards the pelvis. Can we still keep the neck free? If it helps, you might look down towards the mat. Keep the breath flowing. Take another breath in and out. And then slowly, slowly release back down. Extend that right arm and let's try the same to the other side. So now you would step your left hand next to the left shoulder and then breathe, opening the chest away from the mat. And again, there's a bit of a back bend, there's some twisting going on. How does that feel? Does it feel different on this side? Can we keep the neck soft and free? Can we still keep some space between ears and top of the shoulders? Is there still space for the breaths? So observing, checking, and notice how this movement feels. Take another breath in and out. And then slowly come back down. And for a moment, extend both arms overhead. Send one breath all the way down to the belly. And then step both hands under shoulders. Bring yourself onto hands and knees. And we're going to do a bit more twisting from here. So now we're going to come into the thread the needle. So first, we're going to leave the left hand on the mat. And as you inhale, reach your right arm up towards the ceiling. You could even look up. And as you exhale, slide that right arm under the left arm. You could lean your shoulder, lean the head down on the mat. So you're twisting out to the left side. Now you could either stay here, or if you feel that going through another twist would help you to find this pose, then you could inhale, reach the right arm back up, opening chest to the right. And then we'll try again, sliding the right arm under the left arm and see if you could find a better twist or just a twist where you could spend a bit more time this time round. Now you could keep the left hand on the mat or you could lengthen the left arm overhead. Or you could bring that left arm behind the back. Maybe even reach for the right thigh. Now see here if you could again find softness in areas that you don't need to tense now. How does that twist feel along the spine, around the shoulders? Take another breath or two in and out. And then if you're still in that twist, bring that left hand down and lift back onto all fours. And rock a bit from side to side, moving the shoulders, moving the hips. And then we're going to try the same to the other side. So if you have props there that are on your way, just move them aside. And then on this side, we're going to leave the right hand down. Now as you inhale, lengthen the left arm up, twisting to the left. And exhale, slide the left arm under the right arm. So again, leaning the head, leaning the left shoulder down. If you found a good place here, you could stay here. Or if you want to just lift up and come back into the pose, you could inhale, send the left arm up again. And then we could try finding that twist again. Sometimes it helps if we can come out of the pose, go back into it. We've kind of had a taste of the pose and then we know where we might want to go. And again, here you could leave the right hand down. You might extend the right arm overhead, or you might bring that right arm behind the back, maybe even reach for the left thigh. Find your shape on the second side. Maybe it's different than it was on the first side. Where do you feel this pose now as we are on the second side? Might be quite an intense twist. Make sure there's no pain. Again, reminding yourself we are caring for ourselves, checking in, looking after ourselves. So be kind, no pain. Let's take another breath in and out. And then slowly, slowly bring that right hand back down. Lift yourself onto all fours. And now on your hands and knees, do a few circles. So circling the weight from hands to knees, knees to hands, really trying to get the shoulder and hip joints moving. They are those big ball socket joints. So let the balls roll in their sockets. Let's go a few times the other way around, so changing direction. How does that circling movement feel? Let's keep the neck free as much as possible. Let's do a couple more circles. Still breathing. Are we still breathing? And then come back to the center. And then we're going to come sitting on the shins, on the feet. So a hero pose. Now this is where a block or a pillow might be nice under the pelvis if you feel that there's any achiness in the knees or in the feet, then bring some support under the pelvis. And notice if you want to sit on top of the feet or between the feet. Do you want to open the knees wider apart, keep them closer together? Find a place that doesn't hurt. If you know that you have issues in the knees, something that might help would be to press your toes against the mat. So keeping the toes, keeping the feet active as we go into the hero pose. So you might stay in this upright seat if this feels enough now, or step hands behind the pelvis. And at this point, I quite like to tuck the tailbone under slightly, so kind of turning the pelvis, so I'm trying to tuck under a bit. And it gives a bit more of an opening in the thighs, and it also takes some pressure off the lower back. And now this might be quite a nice place to stay. Might be also already quite an intense opening in the fronts of the legs. If you feel that for you there's more space to go even further back, you could lean onto your elbows. You might go even further down. But don't rush yourself too far. If you feel now you've already found an edge you want to stay at, then stay there. Some of you might even want to lean the upper back and head down onto the mat. If you know that that's what you enjoy, then just go for it. I think I found my edge here. I'm not going to go any further.
What do you want to do with your neck though? Do you want to lean the head back? Would you rather keep bringing the chin towards the chest? There's no right or wrong, but really listening to your body. And it might be also different today than it was last time you practiced. See if you could take another couple of breaths in and out wherever you are. And then if you are lower down, if you are on your back, if you're on your elbows, start to bring chin to the chest and slowly lift up onto your hands. Walk hands in front of you. Bring yourself onto all fours. Put any props aside. Tuck the toes under and lift up into another downward dog. Opening through the backs of the legs. Now, how does this change feel? You can shake the neck. Did we gather tension in the neck? Check the shoulders. Take another breath in and out. Also notice if downward dog feels different now than it did in the beginning. And then from this downward facing dog, we're going to slowly, again walk hands and feet closer together. Arrive into a full forward bend. So shift weight onto your feet. Take weight off your hands. And you could even hold your elbows so you're hanging upside down. If that doesn't feel good, you might lean elbows onto your thighs, onto your knees. Finding a full forward bend. Now, do you want to keep your knees bent? Would you like to extend the legs? How does the back side of the body feel? Where's the weight? Is it on the heels? Would you rather lean more towards the toes? Take a couple of breaths here in and out. Let the heavy head release down. Would that feel okay? If it doesn't, that's okay. Don't force yourself. Take another breath in and out. And then if you are holding your elbows, release hands down. Walk the hands and feet apart into downward dog. And then bring the knees down and bring yourself into a seat. A cross-legged seat. If here you want to sit on something, you could have a block, you could have a pillow under the pelvis. We're going to take a moment in this seat before we go into our final back bend. And just notice the breath now flowing in, flowing out. We were there upside down for a while. To notice how it feels to be the right way round again. If the shoulders feel really tired, you can skip the next movement and focus on breath here in just a regular seat. But if you'd like to move the upper body, then release the hands, the arms next to your sides. And with an in-breath, lengthen arms up. Let the arms float up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, bring hands down in front of the belly. Inhale, exhale there. And same again. Inhale, lengthen arms up. And exhale, release the hands, the arms down. Let the hands come down in front of the belly. Breathe down to your hands. Once more. With your in-breath, lengthen arms up. And with an exhalation, release the hands, the arms down. Find hands on the lower belly. Breathe to your hands. And then release the arms. And we're going to reach for our props for the final back bend, supported back bend. So you might have a couple of blocks that you're going to use behind your back. You might have a bolster, you might have some pillows. Bring your props behind your back so that you could come into a reclining back bend. We're going to lean our back onto those props. Lean head onto those props, or maybe you lean head all the way down onto the mat, onto the floor. It might take a while to find your back bend and where you want your props to be. You might leave your knees bent. You might extend your legs all the way down. Or if you'd like to do a reclining butterfly here, then you could turn the soles of the feet towards each other. Let the knees open out to the sides and find a butterfly shape. Choose the option that works best for you now. Do you want to bring arms out to the sides? Would you like to bring arms overhead? Knowing that this is the last pose in our practice. Find an edge, find a place where you feel you could spend a minute or two. Calming down, still observing how you feel. Is there tension that you could release here? Maybe tension that you couldn't release earlier. But could we let go of that tension now? If you need to adjust your pose, feel free to change where the arms are, where your legs are. Or if the back bend is not suitable for you, then feel free to push the props aside and just come into Shavasana pose. Practicing with kindness. Notice the breath. Checking in that there's still space for those breaths to move in and out. Let's take another 5 to 10 breaths. Wherever we are, wherever you are in your pose. Exhale tension. Can we soften around the feet, soften around the hips? Could we soften around the belly, the chest, the back? Soften around the shoulders, the arms. Soften around the neck. Soften the jaw. And soften around the eyes. Take another breath or two in and out. Maybe exhale through the mouth. Let out a sigh.
And if you'd like to stay where you are, continue the practice a bit further. Maybe you're not done with checking in how you're feeling today, then feel free to continue. Or if this was now a good time for you to start ending your practice, then from your back, slowly roll onto your side. So you can bend the knees and then roll onto your side, either left or the right side. So rather than jumping up into a seat, roll onto your side. You could pause there to breathe. And then slowly find your way up into a seat. And let this final seat be an easy pose. Let the hips, let the back, let the shoulders stay soft. And if it's part of your practice, you can bring palms together in front of the chest when we're closing the practice. And as always, thank yourself most importantly for showing up, for bringing your body, your breath, your mind onto the mat into your practice today. And thank yourself for looking after yourself. And I thank you very much for joining in, for sharing this practice. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. In the next practice in this self-care series, we're going to focus a bit more on energizing the body. So you can expect a bit stronger, a bit faster practice. And if you haven't already, please check the charity campaign, Thankmas campaign, in the description box below. And that's where you find the very important donation button as well. So please donate as much as you can for this fantastic charity campaign this holiday season. Thank you. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.